So first of all, we want to talk about pacing through the course. How do I get through this course so I can be successful? So here is not the law, but here is a recommendation that we as instructors, after working in this course for a while, kind of gather, okay, how can we help our students go through this course and be successful? If you look to my far right with the yellow box, you'll see where it says take the pre-assessment. I know that some of us are in the habit where when we enter a class that we take the pre-assessment to kind of gauge our study to see where we are in the course. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's not a wrong way or a right way. But what I want to present to you guys is a recommendation and not necessarily the law. So the first thing we recommend is to review the course of study. Go through the course of study, look at the introduction. In the introduction piece where everything populates on the course material, you have the option to do that course planning tool, take that course planning and work through that. But make sure you read through the introduction, see what the course is all about, get a good background on what the class is all about. I look at things in certain ways. I would say something. If I meet somebody for the first time, you know, it's good to just ask questions to get to know a little bit about that person, right? You're building that foundation that you can potentially develop a relationship from or a strong friendship or connection from. So review the course of study. This will provide you a lot of background information that's necessary to help you through the course. Once you've done that, the second thing we recommend to do is complete the chapter readings. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we explore the course of study today. But complete your chapter readings because these are critical. On that note, I want to kind of resound something to you guys. There is a difference between a performance assessment and an objective assessment course. In a course you're taking that's a performance assessment course, you actually are required to study, or not study, but do some research and complete some tasks. Generally, it might be writing a paper or something of that sort. So performance assessments are about research because you're going to write and so on and so forth. Objective assessments are multiple choice based assessments, right? So you'll be completing a multiple choice exam somewhere along the way during the class, right? And that's an objective assessment. So what is the requirements of a multiple choice exam? Is reading. If you read the material, then you're able to respond to multiple choice questions, right? So there is the difference. For performance assessment, you do research and then you write a paper. For a multiple choice exam, you read and then you answer questions, multiple choice questions based on what you have read. Now, it's very important for me to emphasize your reading because two things. Your textbook requires to read the required chapters, and then just to let you guys in on a secret, the objective assessment for this course was prepared from the textbook that has been assigned for this course. All right. So if you stay away from the textbook and try to find things on Google and all of that good stuff to help your study, that might be a little detrimental. So I want to say, let your Google search and your YouTube search and so on and so forth, let those things be supplemental material and information to you. Let your primary source be your textbook for the course. And we'll talk about that later on. So once you've completed your chapter reading, which for this course is about 13 chapters, well, it's actually 13 chapters, we recommend then take the pre-assessment. Now, if you've already taken the pre-assessment, that's okay. You do have access to all the questions from the pre-assessments once you take the assessment the first time. So there's potentially no need to even retake the pre-assessment because you have access to all of the information once you take it. But if you haven't, we recommend after your chapter reading, take the pre-assessment. And once you've done that, then you get a report, right? You get a coaching report, and the coaching report kind of breaks down to you each competency. And so that allows you to see where you are doing well, which is exemplary, areas that you are approaching competency or you are competent, an area where you probably are unsatisfactory or below competency level. So you get a good picture after you take the pre-assessment of where you are, even after you've reviewed the material. Gives you a very good picture. Now I want to let you guys know that a pass result or a not pass result is not a guarantee that you will pass the objective assessment, because the objective assessment is the higher stake exam than the pre-assessment. So you continue your study, and that's going to be dependent on you, right? How you study, how you conceptualize information. And once you've done that, you say, oh, I feel good, right? And then you take the objective assessment. The objective assessment, this is a proctored exam, so you'll take this assessment, and this is the exam for your grade for the course. So that's all recommended pacing through the course, or your journey to pace through the course. So let's move on and let's talk about the assessments for the course. All right, we're going to compare the objective assessment versus the pre-assessment. So your pre-assessment comprises of 7 questions. It's timed for 120 minutes. You can take this assessment anytime you want to. Like I said, you can take it after you study the material. You can take it today, you can take it tomorrow. You can take this assessment anytime. You don't have to schedule it. You just click now, and then that's what it means by anytime, okay? As I said, we recommend to take this assessment after you've completed your chapter reading, and then use your coaching report to study. You can take the exam multiple times. The downside to that is the questions never change. So it will be the same 70 questions over and over and over and over and over. All right. So I've seen students who figure out, okay, let me take the pre-assessment until I pass. When I pass the pre-assessment, then I know I'm going to pass the objective assessment. So that's kind of misleading information. These 2 exams are totally different. They're different in the aspect of your pre-assessment. Is, think of it in terms of a pop quiz. When you were in high school or middle school, your teacher will give you a pop quiz the day before the exam, and then the next day you get the actual exam. So this is not a misleading assessment, but it's really a guide. It's really a gauge to help you see where you are in relation to your comprehension of the course material. So don't take the mentality that this is, when I take because I had students say, I did the pre-assessment and did very well. And when I saw the objective assessment, it's almost like the pre-assessment is deceptive, right? Don't look at it. It's not deceptive. It's really a preparation tool. So think of it in terms of, if I go to a restaurant to eat, if I order my appetizer, it's just a little bowl of, some spinach soup dip they brought for me and some chips. I don't expect my full course meal to be the same food, right? So I expect to get more food, it's more meatier, it has more things to it, right? So that type of comparison, take that for what it stands for. And then the objective assessment. Now, this is your graded assignment for the course. So I always say this to my students who kind of try to compare the objective assessment and the pre-assessment. I say, hey, imagine this is a master's degree course. Why would a university give you a test the day before that's not graded? Why would they give you the test the day before and then expect you to, not, it's like, think of it, right? So it's not a trick. It's really a preparation tool. So your objective assessment, like the pre-assessment, it's 70 questions. Now, some of you might see 75 questions on your exam. 5 of these questions are not graded questions. We are actually in the process of testing out some new questions in the objective assessment right now. So if you do see 75 questions, 5 of those, don't know which one, don't say, well, this one or that one, but 5 of those questions are being tested, and you're only being graded on 70 questions. All right. It's a proctored exam, so you do need to have a camera. If you haven't gotten your camera yet, I do recommend to look at the recommendations from the university and get your camera. You'll have a proctor. When you get your camera, my recommendation is to practice with the camera. Make sure you can utilize it and get it set up. It's timed for 120 minutes. You can take this assessment multiple times. The difference with the pre-assessment is the questions are different every time. So that's why when you take the objective assessment the first time, you don't get your questions. Because why, if you're going to study these questions and blah, 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 guess what? You go back to take the exam a second time and it's a different set of questions. What are you going to say? Oh my goodness, this university is misleading me, right? So you don't get to see the multiple choice questions or the questions after you take the assessment. And you will never see the questions, even after you pass the class. You won't see those questions because those questions are to be held in high confidentiality for every student that's taking the exam. The first and second attempts are free, and there is, I think, a $60 or $65 cost at every attempt after that, right? Truth is, as you can see in bold red, it's tougher than the pre-assessment. And that's kind of like the logic I brought to you guys. It's your grade for the class, so the exam is going to be tougher. Most of the toughness really comes from students are saying more of the wording, the way that the questions are worded, a little bit more meaty in how they're weighted. And on top of that, you look at, this is again, I cannot overemphasize, this is your grade for the class. So you expect to get prepared for that. There are no difficult calculation questions. So some of you might ask about formulas and calculation questions for this class. For that, there are no difficult calculation questions. When you take the pre-assessment, the minor basic calculation questions you will see in the pre-assessment, that's comparative to what you may or may not see in the objective assessment. Now, I say may or may not because there are several versions of the exam, and sometimes you may get a version that does not have any calculation questions in it. So while you're reading your text, especially from chapter 5 and chapter 6, you're going to run into a lot of statistical based questions or even formulas from those chapters. I do want to emphasize, do not focus on those formulas because you won't see any of those formulas in your exam, in none of your exams, right? You won't see that. This is not a math-based course, so where the exam is based on terminologies, their definitions, and their applications. It's really based on that. So don't strain yourself and get angry and like thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to find this regression and all the statistical stuff. So don't waste your time trying to conceptualize those. These will not be part of your exam. All right, students are reporting they're getting anywhere from 0 calculation questions to 3 calculation questions. And those are very basic questions. You know how to add, multiply, divide, and subtract, you're good to go. It'll work itself out for you. All right, so that gives us a broad idea of how to pace through the class, as well as our objective assessment and our pre-assessment, how they differ and how they compare with each other. At this time, we want to do a bit of exploration. So I want to take you guys to the classroom, and I want to let you guys see what's available for you in the classroom that you can utilize as great resources to help you be successful. When I talk about pacing through the class, this is what I was referring to. So you see on the introduction, most of you guys, every one of you enrolled for the cohort by clicking the Explore cohort piece, right? And then you have your Preparing for Success, Operations Management, and all of the here lies your 6 competencies for the class, all right? And then here is your assessment tab. In your assessment tab, you have your pre-assessment and your objective assessment. Always remember, the first assessment is the pre-assessment and the second is the objective. But what I wanted to do is kind of walk you guys through some important things that's available in the classroom for you. You have your announcements area. In your announcements area, you have your instructors information. So I am Dr. Joseph, and with me have Dr. Golston. Some of you might be assigned to me as your instructor or Dr. Golston. And we also have Dr. Rochelle. We are the 3 instructors of the course. It gives you our email address, phone number with extension, as well as our office hours and availability. It gives us, so you can schedule an appointment by clicking one of those little links in here. All right. So this gives you some good information that you need to know about your instructor. So the other piece, of course, from the course of study I want you guys to focus on is course tips. So when you go to course tips, and that's where we'll do our exploration today, I want you to click on view all. And when you click on view all of this information, this little window comes up. And this is where you have so many resources that you can utilize. There is a getting started section. There is a video section. There is also a textbook section that's available to you. So we can start off with the getting started piece. The getting started, you have a getting started guide. If you open up the getting started guide, from there you can get some tips on how to start the class. There's a little information about the difference between the OA and the PA, and there's information about, often frequently asked questions as well. The pacing guide will kind of help you week over week. This course is developed for a 6 to 8 week period. Most students are averaging completing this class successfully within 3 to 4 weeks. So this is very doable. There is a glossary that basically gives some terminologies, the definitions, and then on top of that, it will show you where in the textbook these concepts are addressed. But the main document I want to introduce you guys to for this class is the Objective Assessment Prep Guide. So this is the guide that really breaks down each of the core competencies for you. So there you have the Objective Assessment Prep Guide. You have each of the competencies, which we'll talk about in a little while. And then you have the chapters that are affiliated with each of those competencies, and then the chapter topics that you will need to review from your textbook. And this is done for each of the competencies as well as for each of the chapters, from competency 1 through all the way through competency 6, management and planning. So I recommend you can print this out. Students are printing this out, and while they're reading from the textbook, they're taking notes next to each of the topics. So I would recommend print this out if you haven't done this. So pick it up, print it out, or save it on your computer and utilize this to help you review the relevant material in the textbook. Here are some introduction-based videos that you can view if you come to this session. These are just a summary of what we're talking about today in our session. I'm going to skip the live events or the video section, and I'm going to go down to the Wiley Plus. Wiley Plus is the textbook that you will be using for this course. All right, there are 3 versions to this textbook, and that's not 3 different textbooks, but 3 different versions. So version number 1, if you click on here, this is like a hard copy of the textbook. So you can either access this by clicking the Wiley Plus textbook, or you can just copy and paste this hyperlink into your web browser. When you do, this is what comes up. So here you have your content section, and from your content section, you have your drop down. From the drop down, you just pick a chapter that you want to review. So say I want to review chapter 5. I just click on that and give it some time. It downloads, and here are the topics that I can review from that chapter. Okay. One of the things to look at here, if you look at the additional resource section, you'll see it says chapter 5 PowerPoints review. You can click this there for the PowerPoints, but the best is coming about PowerPoints. So let's save that for a little while. All right, so this is one version of the textbook. This is the version of the textbook that I recommend to do your reading. When we talk about your prep guide and reading from the chapters, reading the different topics from, this is the book that I recommend, or the version of this textbook that I recommend to complete your reading. Now, as you can see, every chapter is outlined in here, including chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 8. You will not have to read those chapters. You are not being tested on those chapters. All right. The next version of the textbook you can look at is the one I call the practical textbook. This is the book that you can truly utilize to practice. Remember, you're preparing yourself for a multiple choice exam. So the more multiple choice questions that you can practice, especially coming from the textbook, the better prepared this will help you as part of your preparation and readiness to test. So if you can click this hyperlink, or you can copy and paste this one. So let me show you the difference between the textbook version we just looked at and this version. This version only comprises the chapters that you were tested on. So as you can see, it starts with chapter 3 goes all the way down to chapter 16. There's no chapter 1, chapter 2, or chapter 8. Why? It's more of an abridged version. So basically, we have kind of concise all the information that's relevant to the objective assessment. So one of the things I recommend about this version, this would be your practice version of the text. So you can do pre-chapter quizzes, which means you can take some quizzes prior to, or multiple questions prior to getting into the reading of the material, or you can come down and say, okay, I read the book, so let me see how much I know. And then you start taking some multiple choice questions and practicing on those things and so on and so forth. So this is where when you get to chapter 5 and chapter 6 and you might get some multiple choice questions that's like for calculation related. They have a lot of standard deviation piece about them and stuff. These are the questions I say skip, because these are not the type of questions you will see in the assessment. So you can also do practice questions as well. So they have practice questions here that you can do as part of, doing extra multiple choice questions. There are study aids for each chapter. In study aids, you have your PowerPoint presentations, and some of the chapters also have flashcards that you can utilize. So you have a glossary, you have different cards, and then you have quizzes. So this is also another set of multiple choice questions. As you can see, chapter 3 has 41 multiple choice questions. So these look like very basic questions in comparison to what you will see on the exam, but these multiple choice questions are designed to help you comprehend what you are studying and reading from the textbook. And then the last version of the textbook this is your hard copy version of the textbook. Think of it, if you were to buy a book from the bookstore, this is the version of the textbook that you would have purchased. It comes with everything that a textbook is made of. Here you see the cover, you see a chapter introduction, and you see all of those different pieces. The good thing about that version of the textbook is that you have an option to download the book, and then so you can download it on your tablet or your mobile device or your mobile phone. You definitely would have to download an app called Bookshelf, BOOKSHELF. And then the book, once you sign up on there, you search for this book just as it is, Operations Management E5 Text, and then this will automatically download. Once you log into Bookshelf using your WGU credentials, this book, you search for the book and it will automatically download. There is a voice to read option on this text, on this version of the textbook. Just remember that this is like a robot. So if you make a robot reading to you, then that's okay. And the second part about the read to text is that the voice reads every single thing that's on the page. So if there's a picture on the page and there's a description to the picture, the voice is going to read all of that as well. So the students who travel a lot utilize this version of the text. So bear that in mind. And then lastly, about the Wiley Plus text, remember when I showed you guys where you can access the PowerPoint presentations? Well, we've made life a bit easier for you guys. So what we did is we uploaded all of the presentations or the PowerPoint presentations from all of the chapters into course tips, so you have easy access to it. So if you click any on those links, you see chapter 3, 4, and chapter 5 PowerPoints. You click on that and you can download. Same thing with 6, 7, and 9. So we have all the PowerPoints downloaded, uploaded on here for you. You can download those and save them. So I know there are students who like to study through PowerPoints. After they've read the chapter, they utilize the PowerPoints to help them further comprehend the exam, the material. And then going back, as I said, we wanted to skip through the video pieces. So we've added several videos. There was once upon a time, not too long ago, we were doing some live events like this, teaching, going through the material. Some of you students would sign up for it and, don't show up. And that's understandable because we're busy lives. We all have busy lives. So what we did as instructors was we went on and we recorded those sessions. Just as they were, just as we do in live, we recorded those sessions, and now we've made those sessions available to you guys. So what we've done is we've uploaded each of the 6 competencies. We have videos from each of the 6 competencies that addresses core topics and material from your textbook. So if you want to learn a bit more of some of the material from chapters 13, 14, 15, and 12, 13, 14, and 16. Then you can come down to your management and planning section and get some course information on here. So all these are available to you. One of the things I want to say about these videos, they're long. They range anywhere from 30 to about 50 minutes. And why are they so long, Dr. Joseph? As I said to you guys, these were live sessions that we recorded because we thought, okay, if you're not showing up for the meeting that you sign up for, or probably didn't sign up for, then we want to ensure you have those tools available in your hands. And then another set of things we've done, we've uploaded rather shorter videos as well. So here you have a short video. This links there opens up videos that will play in a separate web browser, and they will play for you. They range anywhere from, I'm going to say 3 minutes to about 10, maximum 12 minutes. So if you're reading about in supply chain, you come across the term vertical integration, and you're like, okay, I want to learn a little bit more about that. So you can come here, click on virtual integration, and this will open up a video link for you. And then you press hit play, and then it starts playing. There are closed captioning as well, and so on. All right. So that is available for you in all of those things. All right. And while we wrap this up, one of the things I want to say here is, guys, all of these videos and PowerPoint presentations, they're very good, very good. But I want to add, these are supplemental information or materials. Do not use those as your number one go-to resources. Your number one go-to resource should be your Wiley Plus textbook. And I said, as I said at the beginning, the objective assessment was developed from your Wiley Plus textbook. So as you read from the textbook, if you're looking for further emphasis and clarification on some topics that you're reading, this is a very good source for you to go to and get the information that you need. All right, so all of these sources and resources are available to you. They're right at your fingertips. When you do have questions while you're going through this material, then you can reach out to your instructor, set up an appointment, or send an email, or any way you like to communicate with us as instructors, and we will be glad to assist. All right, so that's your exploration today. I hope this is very helpful to you and very resourceful. All right, the next thing we want to cover today, we want to talk about the objective assessment competencies. As you guys saw from our walkthrough, you saw in the prep guide, you have your 6 competencies, and then you have your chapters that align with those competencies. So what I want to do is provide a high level information about each competency. So when you're studying, you want to know where you need to focus greater emphasis in your review of the material and medium emphasis in the review of the material, so that all culminates into a level and flat review of the material. All right, so I don't want you to think, oh, I got to study this hard and then don't study this. You have to study everything, but essentially you want to ensure that areas in the assessment that really cover high percentages, you are really hitting those hard, and so on and so forth. So competency number 1, quality management methods, comprises of 16% of the exam. Generally, students can look at this as 16% out of 20 questions will be coming from that topic. You can look at it that way, or you can look at it as a weighted average and then even out that way. For your quality management methods, you have chapter 5, quality management, total quality management rather, and then chapter 6, statistical quality controls. And here are some of the key topics you can look at from each of those. Now, the prep guide breaks this down into further details and provides more intricate and more detailed topics that you need to review from those chapters. So that's your quality management methods. The second competency is capacity planning and location analysis. Now look at how the percentage jumped. It jumped to 26%. This is your second highest percentage competency. The quality management is the third. This is your second. And this comprises of chapter 9, chapter 3, and chapter 10. Now look at the order. It's not in numerical order, as you can see. So you have a lot of flexibility to work with as you go through those materials. And again, these topics that are identified here are high level. What I recommend is go into the prep guide that gives you a broader breakdown of all of those topics to review from those chapters. Your third competency is work system design and scheduling. Now, this is the lowest percentage, but this is also a section that a lot of students, because it's low in percentage, they take for granted. And sometimes I find that some students are getting unsatisfactory. You're in the red. Some students get almost zero on those. And because it simply means, oh, it's only 9%, so I'm not going to pay attention to that. Guess what? Being unsatisfactory in that competency can cost you. So I really encourage you, even though it's 9%, please do not ignore this chapter. It is really relevant. So this is chapter 11 from your textbook, one chapter. Take your time and review those, especially the steps in methods analysis. You want to ensure that you know those things and the components of the work system design. Your fourth competency, operating efficiency, is 11%. Now we see we went from 16 to 26 to 9 to 11. This competency comprises of two chapters, chapter 7 and chapter 15, scheduling in chapter 15 and just-in-time and lean systems. Some of you might be familiar with the idea of just-in-time and lean systems. So if you already have some background on that, then that's a good thing that you enter in this section with. And then the next topic is supply chain. Supply chain is only one chapter, chapter 4, but comprises 11% of the exam. A lot of students do very well in the supply chain chapter because they focus so much of their attention on the components of the supply chain. You're looking at your external distributors, your internal contributors, your organization, and how these three components break down. You also look at insourcing versus outsourcing, and then the push and the pull process. You want to be able to familiarize yourself with that as well. And then last but not least is your management and planning competency. Where are we now? We're at 27%. Now in your management and planning piece, this is divided into two sections, inventory management, chapter 12, and project management. In project management, you want to know the life cycle of the project. You want to know that. You want to look at the 5 cycles, and then you want to be able to know them in order: concept, plan, feasibility. You want to know those in that order as well. Get 25% off with promo code. Can you mute your microphone?
Lately, we experienced more inside our home, and our clients have experienced more of us. We are your neighbor. Call us anytime.
I am going to mute this caller. Hopefully, I can. All right, if you are not unmute, there we go. I think that was it. All right. So as I was saying, so project management, you want to know the life cycles of the project. And then inventory management, methods used for verifying inventory. These are some of the topics. As I said before, from your prep guide, you have a deeper breakdown of what those competencies represent, right? How they break down more in details on the chapters that you want to know. And the next piece of your management and planning section is aggregate planning and resource planning. Guys, these are the heavier tested chapters for your management and planning section. So you want to ensure that you really have a good grasp on aggregate planning. What is an aggregate plan? The different types of aggregate plan: level, chase, and hybrid. You understand the relationship of the marketing plan in aggregate planning, and also in resource planning, chapter 14. You want to ensure that you have a good grasp on what is enterprise resource planning, what is materials requirements planning, capacity requirements planning, as well as independent and dependent demand. You want to ensure that you understand those two concepts and really focus a lot of your studies in reviewing the aggregate and aggregate planning and resource planning chapters. All right, so that covers our discussion on your objective assessments, looking at each of the competencies, the percentage weight, and the required chapter that aligns with each of those. Your objective assessment prep guide breaks this down into greater details as well. And the last thing we want to talk about before we open up for questions, I want to talk to you guys about some test taking tips that we have recommended to all students that they have found to be very successful in applying. Let me go back here. Um, so one of the things we identify is if you take your time and study the material, the truth is you will learn a lot. You will know a lot. You will go to the exam knowing a lot of the information. Maybe not everything, but you will have a very good grasp on a very large percentage or good percentage of the material. The exam is about 70 questions at base because that's what they're grading you for. So essentially, you have a good understanding of probably a good 30 to 40, 45 of the questions that are on the exam. Really, if you study. Or if you don't study, that's another question. But if you do follow those guidelines that were provided, then that's a good way to prep yourself. And you should be at that pace. So what we generally recommend to our students is say, hey, when you get into the exam and your exam start by working only on the questions that you feel anywhere from 90 potentially to 100% sure that this is the correct response. If you feel that way about any questions as you're going through the questions one by one, then you only respond to those questions and move on. What you're doing when you do that is you're building a good momentum for yourself. You're building that confidence level for yourself that helps you realize, oh, I'm doing good. So you create that confidence that you can utilize throughout the test. So imagine you run into those questions. These questions you probably work these questions anywhere from 10, maybe 15, 20 seconds at most. So you buy in time for the 120 minutes that you have, right? So think about that. So you start with those questions. Now, Dr. Joseph, what do I do about the questions I'm not sure what the correct response is? My recommendation, bookmark. Somebody says flag those questions. You flag the question and then you say, I'll come back to you later. One of the things to guard against is if you decide to bookmark or flag a question, do not select a response. Because if you do select a response when you go back to that questions, then you're going to start second guessing yourself. And second guess on multiple choice questions is never a good thing to do. So you want to ensure that when you go back to this question, it's almost like you're seeing the question for the first time. All right. Then once you've done all the questions that you've worked through, you know you were sure that this was the correct response. Now you come back to your flagged questions and you work through them one by one. Now, what if I still don't know something, Dr. Joseph? You can flag the question again and then come back to it again. Another thing I would recommend too, when you flag a question or bookmark a question, you're supposed to have a whiteboard in the exam room. Write the question number down that you bookmark so that when you come back and start working on those flag questions, you're going to those questions directly and not thinking, man, what question did I bookmark? Oh my gosh, I can't remember, right? So you want to take a note of those questions that you bookmark so that you go back directly to them. What you're doing here after you flag those questions, you have a lot more time remaining for you to work on a lesser amount of questions. So imagine for a moment the first 40 questions, or not the first 40, 40 out of the 70 questions, you were confident that you knew the correct response was. This would probably take you about 15, maybe at most 20 minutes to do those questions, right? You have 120 minutes. Guess what? You have 30 questions to do in 100 minutes. That's how much time you have left. So on those questions that you flagged or bookmark, you still have time to work on those. All right. So you guys have the potential to be successful in the class. I know that. It's a matter of application and how you apply yourself. And then this will help you be successful. All right. So that's what I wanted to present and share with you guys. At this time, I want to open up and see if you guys have any questions.